Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Andre. Let's start the next section of your class 10 biology, that is respiration. Now starting with the paragraph, two activities are there and you just go through these activities. Now I'm going to simplify the what is written here. The food material taken up during the process of nutrition is used in cells to provide energy. As I have already told you in my previous videos, the diverse organisms do this in different ways. Some use oxygen to break down glucose completely into carbon dioxide and water, and some use other pathways that do not involve oxygen. But you remember the first step. The first step is to, here it is written, the first step is to break down of the glucose. Breakdown of the glucose. And glucose is a 6 carbon molecule. The formula you remember C6H12O6. So glucose is a 6 carbon molecule. From here, breakdown of glucose will result a 3 carbon molecule, that is pyruvate. You just remember for the time being, structure you will get in your class 11 biology. The various structures of glucose, pyruvate, etc. are needed in class 11 biology. For the time being, you just remember the names. This process takes place in the cytoplasm. I hope you know what is cytoplasm. Okay, for your understanding, let's see. This is a cell lined by plasma membrane, and this is a nucleus. This portion is called the cytoplasm. So, breaking down of glucose takes place in this cytoplasm, and pyruvate is formed in the cytoplasm itself. So, just remember this fact. Okay. Now, further the pyruvate may be converted into ethanol and carbon dioxide. This process takes place in the yeast during fermentation. So they might ask you what is fermentation. So you have to start with breaking down of glucose. So glucose is broken down into two molecules of pyruvate. Why two molecules? Just think why two molecules. So glucose has 6 carbon, right? And pyruvate is 3 carbon, 3 carbon plus. So one glucose molecule can give two pyruvates. So two pyruvates are formed. So one glucose breaking down into two pyruvate. Now this pyruvate again converts into ethanol and carbon dioxide. This process is called fermentation. Remember this term, fermentation. In fermentation, what is produced? Carbon dioxide and ethanol. So in your examination, they might ask you what is fermentation. So you have to write all these things and just make sure you write this flowchart also. Since this process takes place in absence of oxygen, it is called anaerobic respiration. Now, breaking down the term anaerobic and aerobic. So, for your understanding, aerobic means air is present, and in front of it, if an comes, it becomes anaerobic. So, air is absent. Air means oxygen, and air doesn't mean oxygen, but for your understanding, I'm saying this, air is absent. So it is anaerobic. So in absence of oxygen and in presence of oxygen, you got this, and I hope it is clear and the terms are also clear. So it is called anaerobic reaction. So is fermentation is a anaerobic reaction. Got this? I hope it's clear to all. Now, breaking down of pyruvate using oxygen takes place in the mitochondria. Okay. Till now, the process was taking place in the cytoplasm, the anaerobic one. Now here are present mitochondria. In mitochondria, in presence of oxygen, I hope you remember from your class 9 knowledge, mitochondria is called the powerhouse of the cell. Why? Because they produce energy. They have their own genetic material. So it is the semi-autonomic organelle and it is the powerhouse of the cell. Now, in presence of oxygen in mitochondria, pyruvate is broken down. You got this? Pyruvate is broken down in presence of oxygen in mitochondria, and in absence of oxygen, it is broken down into in the cytoplasm. Now, this process breaks up the three carbon pyruvate molecule to give three molecules of carbon dioxide. The process breaks up. Extremely sorry for this hydrogen coming all the way. Wait for a second. Okay, now the process breaks up the three carbon pyruvate molecules to give three molecules of carbon dioxide. This process, earlier what we have seen in absence of oxygen, ethanol and carbon dioxide is given. Now, this process in the mitochondria gives three carbon pyruvate molecule to give it three molecules of carbon dioxide. Just logically you think one molecule of pyruvate contains three carbon, right? One molecule of pyruvate contains three carbon. So carbon dioxide has only one carbon in it. So it can give three carbon dioxide in your mitochondria. The other product is water. Since this process takes up in presence of air, it is called aerobic respiration. I have already explained the terms aerobic and anaerobic, so I think it is clear to you all. The release of energy in this aerobic process is a lot greater than the anaerobic process. Energy in the aerobic is much greater than the anaerobic. Sometimes when there is lack of oxygen in our muscle cells, another pathway for the breakdown of pyruvate is taken. Here the pyruvate is converted into lactic acid, which is also a three-carbon molecule. This buildup of lactic acid in our muscle during sudden activity causes cramps. How this cramps occurs? The buildup of lactic acid in our muscle. And how this lactic acid is formed in muscle? In absence of oxygen in muscle, pyruvate is broken down into three carbon molecules called lactic acid, and this accumulation of lactic acid causes cramps. So you have to remember this, and very beautifully a flowchart is given in your book. So let's go through this flowchart. Here is the glucose. First step, glucose converted into pyruvate and some energy. Now this pyruvate can be broken down in absence of water in ethanol, carbon dioxide, energy. Again, in our muscles, it can be converted to lactic acid and energy, and in presence of oxygen in mitochondria. Remember, in mitochondria, in presence of oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, and energy. So it's clear to all. Okay. Now, the energy released during the cellular respiration is immediately used to synthesize a molecule called ATP, which is used to fuel all other activities in the cell. In these processes, ATP is broken down to giving rise to a fixed amount of energy which can drive the endothermic reaction taking place in the cell. Now, reactions are of two types. You will get this in your chemistry class. For the timing, I'm just explaining the terms, okay? Reactions, chemical reactions can be of endothermic and exothermic and can be both. Endothermic and exothermic. Exo. You just remember exo, exit. So here heat is produced or emitted, energy is released. Okay, just for the timing, you just remember like this. So exit. And endo, here heat energy is used. Energy is utilized. And here there's saying about this endothermic reaction where energy is used and fixed amount of energy which can drive the endothermic reactions taking place in the cell. So endothermic reactions need energy, and from where this energy comes? From the ATP. Now it's clear. I hope it's clear to all. I have simplified this paragraph to you all. This is a very complex paragraph. I hope it's clear to all. Now, let's something about this ATP. ATP is the energy currency of the most cellular processes. The energy released during the process of respiration is used to make an ATP molecule from ADP and inorganic phosphate. ADP, adenosine diphosphate. ATP, adenosine triphosphate. From di to tri needs one inorganic phosphate. Okay, I means inorganic. So this one inorganic phosphate adds to the ATP and forms one ATP. Now endothermic processes in the cell can use this ATP to drive reactions. When the thermal phosphate lineage in ATP is broken using water, the energy equivalent is 30.5 kilojoule per mole. You have to remember this. These phosphate bonds, ATP, triphosphate, three phosphates are there and a bond, energy bond is there. Okay, it is high energy bond. And due to water, when this energy bond breaks, phosphate releases and also releases energy. And this energy is equivalent to 30.5 kilojoule per mole. You have to remember this 30 kilojoule per mole. Think how battery can provide energy for many different kinds of use, and it can be used to obtain mechanical energy, light energy, electrical energy, and so on. Similarly, ATP can be used in cells for contraction of muscle. The function of ATP energy can be ARCs, contraction of muscles, protein synthesis, conduction of nerve impulse, and many other activities. Okay. Since the aerobic respiration pathways depends on oxygen, aerobic organisms need to ensure that there is sufficient intake of oxygen. We have seen the plant's exchange gases through stomata and the large intercellular spaces ensure that all cells are in contact with air. Carbon dioxide and oxygen are exchanged by diffusion here. So, in between the cells, there are intercellular spaces. So, if these are the cells, these are the intercellular space. This space is there to ensure sufficient air is present, and air or gases exchange takes place here via diffusion. So I hope it's clear to all how these cells obtain oxygen and other gases. It is via diffusion. And the intercellular spaces, what they do, they keep in touch with the air so that diffusion can take place and they can get oxygen for respiratory purposes. Now coming to the next paragraph, the direction of diffusion depends upon the environmental conditions and the requirements of the plant. At night, when there is no photosynthesis occurring, CO2, carbon dioxide elimination is the major exchange activity going on. During the day, carbon dioxide is generated during respiration is used up for photosynthesis. Hence, there is no carbon dioxide release. Instead, oxygen is released as major event at this time. So, at night in plants, at night. What it happens that no photosynthesis. If there is no photosynthesis, so carbon dioxide elimination takes place. Carbon dioxide is eliminated. But during the daytime, carbon dioxide generated used in photosynthesis. So no carbon dioxide is released. Instead, oxygen is released. So you have to remember that at night carbon dioxide is released because there is no photosynthesis. Just logically you think no photosynthesis, carbon dioxide can be released. But during daytime, carbon dioxide is also generated, but it is used in the process of photosynthesis. So carbon dioxide is not released, but oxygen is released. So I think it's clear to all. Now coming to the next paragraph, animals have evolved different organs for the uptake of oxygen from the environment and for getting rid of the carbon dioxide produced. Terrestrial animals can breathe the oxygen in the atmosphere, but animals that live under the water need to use oxygen dissolved in the water. So underwater organisms, how they take the oxygen, they use the dissolved oxygen in water. So there is an activity, and I guess you will go through it. They have kill slits. Okay, you will get this you got this in class 9 biology also, and you will get this again in class 11. So now coming to the next paragraph, and let's simplify it. Since the amount of dissolved oxygen is fairly low compared to the amount of oxygen in the air, the rate of breathing in aquatic organism is much faster. So from the sentence, just logically think. In air, O2 is available. So the terrestrials means the land animals. Okay, we are also terrestrials, the humans. So our rate of breathing is slow. But in water, where oxygen is low, oxygen low means what? They need to breathe faster now because they need also oxygen, so they need to breathe faster. I hope it's clear why they breathe faster. Just logically think. Okay. Fishes take water through their mouth and force it to pass through the gills. Gills. Fishes have gills. Okay, you have to remember as a respiratory organ. Dissolved oxygen is taken up by the blood. Terrestrial organisms use oxygen in the atmosphere for respiration, as we have already discussed. This oxygen is absorbed by different organs in different animals. All these organs have a structure that increases the surface area which is in contact with the oxygen-rich atmosphere. Since the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide has to take place across this surface is very fine and delicate. It has to be fine and delicate to absorb the gases. Okay. In order to protect this surface, it is usually placed within the body and so have to be passages that will take air to this area. In addition, there is a mechanism for removing air in and out of this area and oxygen is absorbed. In human beings, air is taken into the body through nostrils, the nose. The air passing through the nostrils filtered by fine hairs in the lining passage. The passage is also lined with mucus to help in this process. From here, air passes through the throat into the lungs. Rings and cartilages are present in the throat that ensures that air passage does not collapse. What is the purpose of these rings and cartilages? They make sure the air passage is not collapse. So you have to remember this, the purpose of the rings and cartilages. Now going to the next page. Okay, one thing has been, yeah, more to know. Using tobacco directly or any product of tobacco in the form of cigar, cigarettes, biri, hookah, gorkha, etc. is harmful. It is very, very important to know, and you should not start these things at your age or in elderly age also. These are very, very dangerous. Okay. Use of tobacco most commonly affects the tongue, lungs, heart, and liver. Smokeless tobacco is also a major risk factor for heart attacks, strokes, pulmonary disease, and several forms of the cancers. There is a high incidence of oral cancer in India due to chewing of tobacco in the form of gutka. Stay healthy, say no to these tobacco products. You see, as they have mentioned, there is a very thin layer for gaseous exchange, right? If you take tobacco, this layer gets thickened. Just simply you remember this. The mechanism is whole lot of things included in it, but just simply. And your respiratory problems will begin. Okay, so you should not do these things and say no to these things. Even in your peer pressure, you should not say yes to these things. Now coming to the human respiratory system. So now here you see this is the nasal passage, mouth cavity, pharynx. This is the larynx you see, and this is the trachea. Rings of cartilage is present. The function we have discussed. These are two lungs. Lungs are protected by the ribs, and below the lungs there is diaphragm. Now, going to the details of the lungs, there is bronchi, bronchioles, alveolar sac, and this alveolar sac contains alveoli and respiratory bronchioles. So basically, you see the surface area is increased. Surface area is increased. So gaseous exchange can take place very easily. Now again, do you know? Smoking is injurious to health. Lung cancer is one of the common causes in the deaths in the world. The upper part of respiratory tract is provided with small hair-like structure called cilia. This cilia help to remove germs, dust, and other harmful particles from inhaled air. Smoking destroys this hair, due to which germs, dust, smoke, and other harmful chemicals enter lungs and cause infection, cough, and even lung cancer. Now coming to this paragraph, and let's simplify this paragraph as well, and let's complete human respiratory system today only. Within the lungs, the passage divides into smaller and smaller tubes, which finally terminate in balloon-like structure, which are called alveoli, and in singular terms, alveolus. The alveoli provide a surface where exchange of gases can take place. So you have to remember, exchange of gases takes place in alveoli. It is the plural. Okay. Alveoli. So you have to remember this. The walls of alveoli contain extensive network of blood vessels. As we have seen in the earlier years, when we breathe in and we lift our ribs and flatten our diaphragm, the chest cavity becomes larger as a result. Because of this, air is sucked into the lungs and fills the expanded alveoli. So when the air cavity increases, pressure here pressure decreases and outer pressure is more. So definitely the air will come. Just remember like this logically. Okay. This is all physics. So you have to you should not mug up these things, and you should learn it by logically how this air is coming out due to the pressure difference. Okay. As the volume increases, pressure will go down and outer pressure is more, so the air will come inside this alveoli. Okay, is it clear? The blood brings the carbon dioxide from the rest of the body as carbon dioxide is produced due to the respiratory process. Very good. Respiration. This respiration, the carbon dioxide formed during the various energy processes come with the help of these blood vessels and release into the alveoli, and the oxygen in the alveolar air is taken up by the blood. Okay, exchange of gases takes place. See, carbon dioxide is released and oxygen is taken. During the breathing cycle, when air is taken in and let out, the lungs always contains residual volume of air. There is sufficient time oxygen to be absorbed and carbon dioxide to be released. Residual volume. You will get the details of it in your class 11 biology, but for the time being, I'm telling you. Residual volume is the air that remains in lungs. So gaseous exchange will take place, but there is always a volume, that is residual air, that will always present in the lung. This will help in many things to prevent collapse of the lungs, etc. Many things are there. Okay, just remember what is residual air. When the body size of animals is large, diffusion pressure alone cannot take up oxygen for delivery to all parts of the body. Instead, respiratory pigments take up oxygen, the air in the lungs, and carry it to tissues which deficient in oxygen before releasing it. So, oxygen is taken by the blood vessels, as we have seen. But as human, we are big animals. So, to the tip of your big toe in your leg, the oxygen has to go. For this, it has to travel a long way. So, there are some pigments. In human, there is hemoglobin, and oxygen is get attached to this hemoglobin to form it a oxyhemoglobin, and it takes the oxygen to the various parts of the body. Is it clear? I will simplify this again for the timing. I hope it is clear how hemoglobin helps. Okay, so these pigments are necessary to go to different places in our body, because in the big animals the body size is more, so air will not go to all the parts, so respiratory pigment is definitely necessary. Now let's study what they have written. I will simplify this again. In human beings, the respiratory pigment is hemoglobin, as we have already talked, has very high affinity for oxygen. This pigment is present in red blood corpuscle RBC, and carbon dioxide more soluble in water than oxygen and hence mostly transported in dissolved form in our blood. Now, you see, from air, oxygen is there. Oxygen gaseous exchange takes place in the alveoli with here the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is Hb. Okay, hemoglobin comes and this forms oxyhemoglobin. It goes to the cells in various body parts. When it comes to the carbon dioxide, they travel in dissolved form. They also can travel with the help of pigment. You will get this in class 11, but for here in your book, it is mentioned in the dissolved form because 97% of carbon dioxide travels in dissolved form. So you have to remember this, and I hope it's clear to all. Okay. If the alveolar surface were spread out, it would cover about 80 meters square. Just imagine 80 meters square. How much do you think the surface area of our body is? Consider efficient exchange of gases becomes because this large surface area available for exchange to take place. As I have told you, they increases the surface area to help the gaseous output and input. If diffusion were to move oxygen in our body, it is estimated to take 3 years for a molecule of oxygen to get to our text. If only diffusion has to took, then one oxygen molecule, they say it would take 3 years if the hemoglobin is absent. Thank you for this. Thank you for watching this long. I hope it's clear and simplified to all. If you like it, please like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next video. Thank you.